Come in, welcome in everyone, and good night. Yeah, good night. How are you guys doing? Doing a couple of fixes, but hi everyone, welcome in. And before we dive in, I want us to take a deep breath. Let's take a deep breath, a deep collective breath before we dive in. So, the gap. At the simplest level, it is the space between your inner knowing and your outer response. You know, your body, your gut, your spirit tells you the truth first. That's instant and that's involuntary. But what comes out your mouth, filtered to the world, that's a little bit different. That's that little something from your inner knowing to your response to the outer world. That actual thing is called the gap. And that space is not empty. It's actually occupied by something. And in this room tonight, we're going to talk about that something, that sweet space. Okay? And if you're new to this room tonight, my name is Petra, and I'm a self-trust guide. I see what you're not saying on the outside. I see what you're not saying out loud. I work with accomplished women who look steady, who look perfect on the outside, but is secretly running on empty on the inside. Right? I help them find the words for what they've been actually carrying. I help them learn how to trust their inner knowing once again and to come back to themselves. Hi everyone. And tonight we are diving into the gap. That space between your thoughts and what comes out your mouth. So welcome in tonight. And I usually call this the flow state. Love the flow state. And please, if you have any questions, let me know, DM me, and all that good stuff once we get it. So, how can I start this? Let's talk about, let's have some real conversation tonight. When was the last time your body said no to something, your spirit said no, and your mouth said yes? That split second, the request is made, the boundary is crossed, another task is put on your plate. Your gut tightens, your spirit says no, your inner knowing is instant and involuntary, but your outer response keeps going. Before you could even process the feelings that you're having, the tightness, the heavy chest and all that good stuff, you say, sure, it works for me, or no, I'm fine, or I've got it covered, don't worry. And somewhere in you, is that quiet voice that's saying, why she say yes to this stuff? Why did she say yes? She knows she can't take on any more, but she's still saying yes to this mess. I wonder how many of you have done that. I know I have. I have said yes to many things in my life when my whole body cringed and was saying, no, not again, not me again, go to somebody else. You know, sometimes you're on your job and you are the one that always show up. You are the one that always do the right thing. You are the one that they can depend on. And instead of they allow the others to catch up with you, they dump everything on you. That's just the job. Then you have family members who always run to you for everything, and you know you can't. But there's something in you that just can't or refuse to say no. So you take on other people's responsibilities, right? Your body is saying no, and your mouth is just running. And it's running because it's an automatic response, and it's a disconnect between your inner knowing and your outer responses. And how do we get there, right? It's so automatic that before your body can finally react, your mouth is saying yes. Your body hasn't even had the chance to catch up with what your mouth is trying to say. That involuntary, that I wouldn't say it's an involuntary response, it's an automatic response. And that automatic response, I want to say this, is not a flaw, it's not a defect, and it's not you being weak. It's just a habit that has developed into a skill. I'm going to talk more about that. So if this is resonating with anyone tonight, please let me know. Please let me know. The habit becomes a skill. A pattern that was built because it worked for you at some point in time. It kept things smooth. It kept things running at work. It kept things smooth in the house. It kept the peace. It kept people comfortable who were around you. You know, and you became an expert at, I want to say this, you became an expert at quieting your inner knowing and letting your mouth just talk. You're not letting it sync with each other so you can make the right decision, so you can say what you're truly feeling. I've been there. I've been there. Where I want to say no, but I'm like, what is this no going to do for me? You know, if I say no, then what? So the habit was built for a reason. The habit of saying, of responding before you think, it was built. It didn't just happen overnight. I want you to know that. It didn't just happen overnight. It was something that was built, and beneath the habit, there's something more beneath that habit. And the question is, what is the more underneath the habit? And the more can be, at some point in time, you had to make a decision. You had to make a heavy decision, and you overrode your inner knowing. And you overrode your inner knowing because that thing that you had to do that you really didn't want to, because you gave into it, it cost you something. So you gave into it because you didn't want to, you know, make anyone feel bad, or you wanted to appease people outside of you, even though you were giving of yourself. So the gap is developed. The gap is something that is built, and is built for, and sometimes, here's the thing, we don't even know what that underneath thing is. We just usually do it because we do it so unconsciously, you know? So, that no came from repetition. It came from it being built. So, at this point in time, you're thinking, I don't want to say, I want to get brave and say the thing that I'm really feeling. But once again, that no cost you something. The no cost you either someone disliking your decision. The no cost you either, you know, someone disliking you. The no can cost you a job. The no can cost you for having people walk away from you. All those things can be a symptom of you in the first place saying your no. So, not to have those feelings, your body automatically tells you, hey, let me protect you. So let me, in order to protect you, let's create this thing that can keep you safe. Because that's what our body wants to do at all times, to make sure that we are safe. And the habit teaches you to override yourself and the inner knowing. Okay? The habit overrode, and the overriding it made it feel like protection. So, and in creating that, going in that spiral of protecting yourself, you start to develop different languages, or what we will call personality. And we will say things like this so people can feel comfortable around us. We will say things like, oh, I'm just an easygoing person. Or you will say, I'm not a confrontational person. Or you'll say, I don't like to make a big deal out of things. And that's what people start saying, you know, that's my personality, you know, I'm an easy goer, I want to be okay, you know, I want to be helpful. You're saying all those things with your mouth, but your body does not want it. And you're just not brave enough to connect the two. So you create this persona to the world by giving in to everything. And the habit you developed becomes the habit is not the real story. It's the reason why you created the habit is truly the real story. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in tonight. The topic is the gap, right? The gap. So we are talking about the inner response, the inner knowing and the outer response. And if this feels like if you're realizing how your outer response have been overriding your inner knowing, I want you to take a deep breath tonight. Take a deep breath, drop your shoulders, because in this space, there's zero room for shame. There has been a lot of times that I have said yes to many things that everything in me said no. Every single thing in me was like, girl, not again. And having that override is not a weakness. It's just an adaptation. You didn't, and you adapted not because you were broken. You adapted so you could survive situation or situations. You know, the gap became a place where you found peace. Peace in the sense that the people around you stayed calm, the world wasn't falling apart, the job was safe. Everything stayed in alignment, or so it seemed. Everything stayed in alignment because you were protecting everything outside of you. But it started costing you something. It started costing you exertion. It started costing you to have, some people have anxiety attacks when people come up to them and ask them questions, because they know what that inner knowing is still there. It's just the outer response is always to people please and adapt. And we don't want to stand in that space anymore, right? And we don't have to live in survival. We get to change things, especially when we recognize what's showing up for us. We get to have those changes, and we get to have those changes and give grace to ourselves, because we tend to give grace to everybody else but us, okay? So how do you start closing the gap between your inner knowing and your outer response? And that it starts with learning to align yourself. I'll use the word align. It starts with aligning and getting to know yourself. So a question I would ask myself is, why do I keep overriding my inner knowing? And why is keeping everyone else comfortable around me important? That's a question. Why do you keep overriding your inner knowing? And why do you have to keep everybody around you comfortable? Think about that. And I know most of us, I know I couldn't answer those questions right away. Some people I said I do, but I wanted to. Yes. Yes. And other times you say yes, but yeah. But closing the gap isn't about being braver in the exact moment. It's like asking you to do something that you haven't practiced in a long time, right? Because it's closing the gap. I would say this: closing the gap takes you being brave, learning to be brave in your quiet moments. It means taking time to get to realign yourself with your inner knowing. It's about taking time to build that thing, that quiet voice. You know, we always say we have a quiet voice inside of us. There's a quiet voice inside of you that's always whispering those good things. But your fear sometimes sounds louder than that inner knowing. It's about taking time to cultivate your inner self. Taking time and practicing with small things. And this small things don't have to be outside of you. This small thing can be with you. Like you having conversations with yourself and doing things to actually test yourself. If that makes any sense. If that makes any sense. Because underneath the habit of just saying yes all the time when your body is saying no has a deeper meaning beneath it. It might just be a habit or something else. And getting brave with yourself, by yourself, is where everything starts to shift for you. So the next time you feel pressure or you have to answer a question or something someone asks you, here's a practice. Before you even answer, take a deep breath. And let that deep breath be your pause and the space where you decide to choose your inner knowing. Because other people's comfort comes at a cost at some point in time in your life. So someone come and ask you a question, you take that deep, and you know your body is saying no, you take that deep breath, choose yourself, and then answer. And you don't have to have all the answers tonight, okay? This is just a practice. This is something for you to check in with yourself before you make any type of decision. And this just don't have to be for, you know, people that's in your life. This can be for you as well. Practice listening to yourself. It's the best thing you would ever do for your... I don't know if anybody could attest in here, but it's the best thing you can do for yourself. It's taking that deep breath, pausing, connecting with your body, and then responding, then making decisions. Okay? So if you're sitting here tonight and you think this is more than just a habit, or you think there's something really deeper, you don't have to sit with this alone. Okay? This is exactly the work we do, the work I do through my clarity session. It's a one-on-one session just with me, where we are looking at exactly why the gap happened, or, you know, why the gap happened, how the gap came about. And it's a session where we can start, you know, building self-trust, help you start to build self-trust within yourself. So if you have any questions about that, my stand still have all of my information for all of the services I provide. So I have a question. Where did the gap show up for you this week? Or where is the gap showing up for you in your life? Period. And if you find where that gap is, that's where you start working. That's where you start building, rebuilding your inner knowing. Because the inner knowing, that gap is not just the habit you cultivated. It's something created that space for you. Something. So now it's about figuring out where this thing is, why this thing is, and learning to quiet this thing so that you can work in harmony with yourself. Because a lot of times we get into spaces where we are so mad at ourselves for the decisions we make, because we know we are not living in our truth and in our authentic way. I think that's what it is. We're not living the authentic life that we so desire, because we're trying to please everything and everyone outside of us. So what are you missing? What do you want to build? What do you want to stand firm on? Is the question. What do you want to stand firm on and be proud and celebrate yourself? In this practice of making decisions, when you make that decision, celebrate yourself. Because that's the one thing we don't do. We just move on to the other thing so that we can say we did this. We're not doing that anymore. Our small decisions that we make to choose ourselves, celebrate it. Okay? Anyone have any questions? Any questions at all? This is going to be short and sweet. This is not going to be too long. It's just about truly delivering the message and let you know that if there's any time you need to have that conversation about how do you get beneath the thing that is holding you back, I'm here for that. Okay? So, if we have no questions, thanks Dawn and Asha and Crystal and Dwayne and everybody that come in tonight. Thank you everyone who's listening now, and thank you for everyone that's going to be listening on the replay. Thank you for supporting me, and I'll see you on the next run. See you next Tuesday. Don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'm liking this. So you all have a beautiful night, and talk to you soon.